Oh, did you want to mute it?
Oh yeah, thank you, Lynn.
Mute us, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So we're on the 9th day of December somehow. So go ahead and just change the crossing of your legs into your least preferred crossing. Hopefully that's starting to change. Maybe you'll notice that as you practice with both sides, you start to favor one side less. Then take a moment to make those adjustments to your seated position, just so you feel very anchored into the floor, into the props. You feel aligned. You feel kind of a balance between the foundation of this pose and then kind of the lighter, more extended upper portion. And lots of attention to keeping the breastbone forward today. In forward bends, it's the only part of the body that doesn't move back. So just take a few moments with your hands pressing down just to bring the lift and spread of the chest, and make sure it's not at the cost of pushing the abdomen forward or overarching the low back. We want to be able to spread the chest without distorting the lumbar spine. Also make sure as you spread your chest, you're not pushing your head forward. So think about the face moving toward the back of the head. When you feel like you have really refined the seated position, join the hands in front of the heart without the shoulders being invited forward. Keeping a steady gaze pointed down toward your cheeks, which brings attention down in the body. Just start to connect awareness with the heaviest parts of yourself, the parts touching the floor. As you really invite the heaviest parts of yourself to sink deeper into the floor, then start to invite that resulting lightness. Lift the pelvic bowl, lift the rib cage, lift the skull. Bringing some dynamic action into the body. Bringing balance into the body. Let your tongue rest on the floor of the mouth as one of those heavy parts. And then feel the lightness, the ascension of the soft palate at the roof of the mouth. Sitting quietly with yourself, tuning into the station of presence, of awareness, of acceptance, of allowing. And as you take your next exhale, bring the chest and chin together. Let your hands move down, and when you're ready, lift your head, let your eyes come open. Welcome. So just change the crossing of your legs for a moment, just kind of an overview of the class today. We're in a forward bending week. The emphasis on this forward bending practice this month is negative space. Forward bends are compact poses, and so our work really is to carve out space so that they don't feel dense or heavy or oppressive. They feel light and spacious and free. So we're going to focus on 4 major areas where we can cultivate space. So we're going to be working with the thighs compacting towards the backs of the thighs. We're going to be working with creating or maintaining space at the hip joints. And we're going to be working with hollowing the abdomen. And we're going to be working with keeping the chest forward and the shoulders back out of the way. So I'm going to have you guys come into child's pose just to elongate the spine. And as you take your child's pose, feel free to do Parshva, Adho Mukha, Virasana, which means you can just kind of walk your hands to each side. You can start to wake up the torso with some lateral movement, but start right in the middle position with your arms extended forward. So with this group on top of the kind of emphasis of the class, and we're going through the kind of how we implement the yamas and niyamas into our daily life. And I've been kind of working from this book, Living Your Yoga, by Judith Hanson Lassiter. So this week we're talking about discipline. And discipline, I think, is very similar to the work of negative space, because oftentimes discipline is not just about what you do. Oftentimes discipline is also about the choices you make in life to not do or not partake. So just walk the hands to one side. In the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali discusses discipline in Book 1, verse 12, Abhyasa Varagya Tan Nirodha, or the restriction of these fluctuations is achieved through practice and dispassion. Do what you can and do it fully. Apply oneself. Practice is not about what you get, it is about what you give. Whether you are driven or resistant, the medicine is the same. Do what is truly possible with unwavering commitment to giving yourself to the moment. Without this intention, practice becomes another task to be completed, and it loses its ability to transform. And transformation, or freedom, is the reason for all discipline. We'll add a little bit more to that conversation later. But for now, I just want you to find your way up to standing through one downward facing dog. You can stay for a few breaths if you would like. And as you take that downward facing dog, think about the thighs, moving front to back, keeping space open in the hip joints, keeping the abdomen floating to the back body, and keeping the shoulders working in a way that asks the chest to come out of the shadows. When you're ready, just tiptoeing the feet toward the wrist until you can come up to standing. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start the kind of the pre-work with the emphasis on the thighs. So even if you're off camera, you're going to find a wall space to work with so that you can place one of your feet in a supported Padangustasana, hand to big toe pose. And we're going to be working with the strap as well. So you can make a loop with your strap. And the loop you're going to have to kind of customize the best fit. I'll show you what we're doing. I'll pretend I have a wall here so you can see me. But we're going to be putting the the piece of the loop into the arch of the left foot. We're going to be extending the right leg at the wall with the foot on the wall. So you'll need to kind of tighten off any excess slack that you have. And then once you have the right amount of tension, you're going to just take hold of your hips. Okay, so the right foot is going to the wall. The left foot is holding down the strap to the floor. And the loop should be belted kind of near the hip crease. Yeah, so it'll take some finagling. And what we're trying to kind of emphasize here is as we eventually raise the leg in Padangustasana, we keep compacting the thigh front to back. So we keep the hips really anchored evenly, and we really start to sense that we can make more room in that bulky thigh by inviting it toward the back thigh. I'm going to turn around and do it at the wall with you. You can tighten it off as you need to. If you're able to grab your hips and start to work the elbows together, you're going to do that, keeping the chest forward. And see if you can bring a sense of lightness to your standing leg, which is obviously heavier. We're bringing the femur bone up into the hip socket. Good. Just a few breaths. Maybe tightening if you've already extended the leg a little bit. Now with any kind of prop that creates a little bit of imbalance in the body, be very careful as you come out. Use your intuition. There's no wrong way to come out as long as it's safe. Coming out safely is our goal. So help yourself down. You can take your loop over to the other foot. You shouldn't need to adjust too much unless your legs are very different with their tension. And just like when we do this in any other version, we want to really work with straight legs. So really bring full extension to both legs. Letting the elbows pull together, lifting and spreading the chest. Letting the left back of your thigh absorb the left front of your thigh. And lifting up strongly on your standing leg. Okay, and now gently help yourself out of that contraption. So I just wanted to show this one other way. There's many ways to show this. We could do Dandasana, we could do reclining, Padangustasana. You can use your chair if you need extra support today. We're going to do Warrior 3. And just to demonstrate, we're going to be raising the right leg. And now that front thigh, which we still want to compact toward the back thigh, is working against gravity. So it demands more awareness. It demands more kind of action in the body because gravity wants to have that bulky front thigh fall towards the floor. So you're going to find your own distance from that chair so that when you stand on the left leg, your left leg is aligning vertically. You're not on some sort of angled leg. And you're going to take the right leg up and back, wind the toes down so you have the front center of the thigh facing the floor. And see if you can bring awareness to bringing the right front thigh toward the back right thigh. Keep the hips level. Remember the dog at the fire hydrant. We try to avoid that action. So keep lifting standing leg. Good. Lower the leg. You might need to stand up and shake your legs out. We don't want to work with tired legs for a second side. So just refresh yourself. And then you can come into second side. We'll be raising the left leg, standing on the right leg. Remember, you're trying to work with that straight standing leg. You might need to move your chair to adjust. Winding those left toes to point straight down, fully extending both legs. And then see if you can find a way to compact the front left thigh toward the ceiling. Nice. Lengthening the leg back down, not just dropping it, keeping the kind of extension as you lower. Good. Stepping in, standing up, and maybe shaking the legs out. So just step into mountain, put yourself in mountain, close your eyes, stand up tall. Before we kind of move on, I just want you to bring attention to the front thighs. So BKS Iyengar considered this front thigh bulky and the back thigh is thin. And obviously that creates an imbalance in the body. So if we forcefully try to push those bulky front thigh muscles back, in essence, we're adding more bulk. So a more graceful idea with the concept, think about the backs of your thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. There's going to be less compaction and less bulk if you think about it, rather than trying to force those bulky front thighs back. So let the backs of your thighs just kind of absorb the fronts of your thighs. Taking what is bulky, making it thin. Okay. And then when you're ready, blink the eyes open, release your legs, maybe shake out your limbs. So the next area we're going to focus on is the hips. And I'm going to have you take your chair. I told you we were only using the chair once. Now I think it's up to three times. But you're gonna take your chair and fold it. Hopefully you have a folding chair. We're gonna bring awareness to what oftentimes gets collapsed and congested in standing folds. Right at the hips, we tend to get really bunched up. Sometimes you get a painful cramp there. The bar of the chair is going to be hitting you right where the groins and thighs meet. So you're gonna wanna put it right there, not on the abdomen. We'll get to the abdomen later. And then you're gonna step the feet hip distance just for a little more stability here. The chair is angled, you are not. You're gonna be vertically standing. So this is a forward bend Uttanasana that we're gonna do. So you're gonna start to kind of lengthen, extend the torso forward. Walk your hands down the sides of the chair. You can stop at your halfway point, kind of inviting the concave lumbar to be there, or else a flat lumbar, but not rounded. Spread and lift the chest. And then wing the elbows out wide and just let the front body drape toward that chair. So we do Uttanasana all the time. The awareness today is really on the hips staying spacious. I used to always get a big old cramp in my, just my right hip. And my teacher back in the day in the studio would come up and bring a piece of dowel. And she would put the dowel at my hip joint and my cramp would vanish. So keeping the space here at the hip joints is essential. It also reinforces the femur bones moving up and into the hip sockets. Good. Couple more breaths. You can let the head just go. We want to always leave our poses as intelligently as we come in. So begin to look forward, keep the spine extended, scoop your belly towards your back for support, climb up your chair, use your in-breath to come up. Wonderful. And now open the chair. So I keep adding chairs to the poses that I've sequenced today. So we're going to use the chair again, but open, and you're going to put it in front of you. And the seat is going to be facing you. We're still working on the space in the hips. We're going to take Prasarita Paratanasana, keeping an awareness and a spaciousness to the hips. So yeah, chair, seat faces you, good. Take the equilateral triangle stance with your two legs on the floor, toes pointing forward. Make sure your feet are spacious. You're not rolling onto the outer feet and those small toes are now turned out. You want to see small toes, pads on the floor. Good. So take hold of your hips. Just put a finger into each hip crease. Like just a reminder, a little spacer. Put a finger into the hip crease. Lengthen forward. Your fingers will stay there for a few moments and you're going to pin the elbows in together. We're not using the chair just yet. Pin the elbows in together. Manually imprinting that little space there at the hips. Now use your chair and take your hands to the edge, push it forward. Your Prasarita Paratanasana today is all about awareness in those hip joints. So you have to keep a sense of lift on the legs, extension of the torso. Obviously, we're not in the full forward bend. So we want to feel this feeling when we do come into full forward bend. We're giving our body good little imprints here. Keep your feet balanced. And imagine if we were in a studio, either a partner is strapping your hips and pulling back, or a teacher or somebody is taking a dowel across your hip joints and they're keeping that space held open. Or imagine your fingers are still there. Keep the crown of the head extending away from the tip of the tailbone. And don't let gravity push the belly toward the floor. Keep the belly resisting gravity and gently spreading toward the back body. Good. You can go back to your thighs and feel the backs of the thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. Good. Now look forward, use your in-breath, pull the chair toward you, help yourself come upright, move the feet together. come into standing mountain Tadasana just to take a moment to note the effects on your body, to bring attention to those two areas we've been identifying and kind of sensing in these forward bends. And now we're going to do one more thing with the hip joints. Pashimotonasana, seated pose. You can put your chair out of the way. One blanket you can sit on to help you keep your lower back upright or concave. And then we're going to need another blanket to hold that space at the hips open. Lastly, find your strap. You may want to open it. So the sitting bones should come right to the edge of the blanket. Before we get to the hips, remember the thighs. So use your thighs in a way you're eliminating the space under the thighs by having the backs of your thighs absorb the fronts of your thighs. Your feet are together, toes above heels, pressing out through the ball mounds and through the heels. And then you can use your blanket, it goes right up to the same area we put the chair. So right to the hip joints there, but don't have the belly under it. If you have a belly, have the belly come above it, above the lip of the blanket. And then you're going to take your strap to the soles of your feet. And we haven't done a full kind of preparation for Pashimotonasana, so this is not about your deepest forward bend right now. This is about still imprinting. Right now, we're talking about space in the hip joints. So start with your elbows under your shoulders. Your chest is lifted and spread. You've already taken care of the thighs. That's the first order of business there. Press the thighs towards the floor gently without making them more bulky. And then on an inhale, lift through the top of the head. Exhale, hinge forward. And just use that little blanket to encourage that space at the hips. Put the crown of your head in alignment with the spine all the way to the tailbone. So in other words, don't drop the head and don't look forward. Try to have your crown consistent with the spine. Just keep your attention really focused on spaciousness in the hips. No congestion. When you're ready to take your next in-breath, look forward, lengthen yourself up. Release the strap for a moment. We are going to repeat this because we're moving into now talking about the abdomen. And we can do the very same thing, but bring attention to the abdomen. We're going to make the blanket thicker. So just fold it in half. Bring it all the way up, same area to the hips. Again, if you have a belly, it shouldn't be under the blanket, it should be above it. And now we're going to try to bring this idea of the belly spreading back, which is very effective in creating space. When you come into deep forward bends, we want the belly to spread back, but we also, in doing that, bring the breath up and it helps get us open in the back body. So forward bends are really about back body opening. The breath is forced up and expands out. So you're going to, again, use your strap if you need to, or you could grab your feet directly. Start with your hands wrapping the strap, your elbows in line with your shoulders. Come forward, and every time you breathe in, there might be a feeling that the belly pushes into the blanket. I want you to use the blanket as a reminder to spread the belly away from the blanket. So spread the belly toward the back body and feel how you can create space so you don't feel squished. You don't feel like you're running out of space. Every time you breathe in, the abdomen spreads back. The breath comes up across the upper back, across the chest. And meanwhile, go back to those first two pieces, your thighs and your hips. Couple more moments, just really embodying this concept. Yoga is experiential. We can talk about it all day long, but until we do it and apply the ideas, they just are still ideas. Okay. So lengthening yourself up and out of it. Your legs are probably tired, give them a good bounce or shake. You can take your props out of your way. And now to do one more pose to reinforce the idea of spreading the abdomen. We're going to come into Uttanasana, so standing with the blanket kind of as an apron. And if you need, you can use your blocks or chair for your hand support. You can also kind of grab your opposite elbows and dangle. We're not trying to come into our deepest forward bend. We're just trying to get this awareness of the abdomen spreading. So you can take your blanket, fold it in half so it's a little thicker. Your feet should be hip distance. Again, as you fold forward, we want the belly to come up over the lip of the blanket and be on top of the front of the blanket. So you're going to hold it in place until you catch it with your own little forward flexion. So coming forward, once you catch the blanket, your body holds it there, hopefully. You can either work with blocks, hands to the floor, opposite elbows, hands to the chair. And I want you to take the next 8 breaths. And every time you inhale, maybe first just see what your body does without the wise actions in place. You might feel pressure into that blanket, into your thigh. Try to reverse that. Every time you inhale, invite the abdomen to gently spread toward the back body. Feeling the breath coming up higher into the chest, into the rib cage, the upper back. Good. You're going to bend your knees. If you're grabbing your elbows, drop your hands. You're going to help yourself up, let the blanket fall. Nice. Step the feet together. Extend the arms. Put yourself back in mountain pose. Maybe still taking a few of those breaths with the awareness on the abdomen rather than inflating when you breathe in, gently spreading back. It lifts the breath up and up higher to the chest. We get better, deeper breaths. We feel better. Some teachers call it reverse breathing. Nice. Okay, so moving into the last target area of the spacious forward bend, working with negative space. We're going to work with the shoulders and the actions of the shoulders to keep our chest as the only thing that stays shining forth. Everything else to the front body draws towards the back body. We're going to be taking another Uttanasana, feet separated hip distance, hands to the hips, elbows hidden, meaning you're going to draw the elbows in together so they're only as wide as your shoulders. Good. Go back to those first 3 actions first. So let the thighs be absorbed front to back. Every time you breathe in, just inviting space across the hip joints. Every time you breathe in, spreading the abdomen back. And when you come to the top of the next in-breath, hinging forward, keeping the elbows like they're holding something between them. So come halfway forward. Lifting, spreading the belly back to keep kind of resisting gravity, which wants to kind of hang the belly toward the floor. Keeping the chest in the sunlight. Long neck, crown of the head represents the extension of the spine. It's not doing its own thing. Move the thighs front to back. Keep an openness across the hip joint. Spread the abdomen back. Keep the elbows working together to keep the shoulders from drooping toward the floor. These look great. Good. Inhale, lift yourself up. Okay, shake the legs up. So the second and last thing we're going to do with that is our Gomukatsuna arms in Pashimotonasana. So we're going to first just set up our Gomukatsuna arms. You don't need anything on your mat. Because our right foot will be the leading foot, our left arm is the top arm. So take your left arm to the top position of Gomukatsuna. Yeah, and if you can connect directly, you're going to do that. So find your Gomukatsuna arm, level 2. We're not going to go through all the nuances there. Roll the shoulders back. Create dynamic action between the elbow tips. If you have strap dangling around your feet, please don't jump. Otherwise, you can jump out, but we're going to find your feet to the wide stance. Turning the right toes out, left toes in. Pointing the hips evenly to the right side of the mat. Okay, we're coming into a forward bend, and this is emphasis on the chest staying open, which means the shoulders have to do the work. So take a few moments here in Gomukatsana, really working the Gomukatsana arms. Taking the elbow tips back, the shoulder blades in. Rotating the flesh of the inner upper arms out, the outer upper arms in. Come to the top of an in-breath. Exhale, half forward bend. So now we're fighting against gravity with the elbow tips, with the shoulders. We have to lift, 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 lift. Keep the shoulder blades inserting toward the chest. Keep your nose tip right over your right big toe. And transfer your weight from right to left to keep the feet in balance. Go back to the 4 major areas. Compact, is your right thigh as compact as it can be front to back? Are you moving the flesh of the right thigh front to back? Hip joint, do you have space there? If not, how can you recover some space? Abdomen, is it spreading back or falling toward the floor? Elbow tips up, shoulders back, chest in the sunlight. 2 more breaths. So to come out, anchor into your back foot, use an in-breath, come all the way up, turn the feet wide, release your arms, you're gonna grab the strap, low with both hands, palms facing forward, widen the stance, widen the spread of the hands, pinkies are kind of coming forward, thumbs are kind of rotating back. This is the action of the arms we wanna feel throughout Gomukatsana. We're just kind of reinforcing it. But bring a sense of pulling between the hands and bring a sense of gravity to your strap, like it's being magnetized towards the floor. Keep the tailbone in, chest lifted and spread. Nice. So set up Gomukatsana side 2, with or without the strap. So the right arm will be the high position, left arm will be the low position. And you can turn the left toes out, right toes in. Find the full extension of your legs. Really move the right thigh front to back without making it any bulkier. Feel the openness of your left hip joint, which is about to become potentially very collapsed. Feel the abdomen moving toward the back body. And on an exhale, hinge halfway forward. Take those elbow tips up. Keep the chest in the sunlight. Your nose right over your left big toe. And start to shift the weight across the feet from left to right to equalize. Bring attention to your left front thigh, your left hip joint. Take a few breaths, inviting the abdomen toward the back body as you breathe in. Keep the elbows moving back towards the ceiling. Shoulders staying in that correct rotation. Last 2 breaths. Use an inhale and anchor into your back foot to help you up. Revolve the feet. Take your strap low again. Palms facing forward, toes forward. Tailbone in. Long lumbar spine and your head not thrown forward. Close the eyes if it helps you align. Very heavy, extended arms. Shoulders really far from the earlobes. And then help yourself to step the feet together. Put your strap aside. All right. So we are going to come into Triangle Mukha Pada Pashimotonasana, which means we're going into one hero leg. We're going to be folding forward over the straight Dandasana leg. So for Kathleen, I know you have one side that's better than the other. Feel free to do Shirshasana, meaning the knee will be out. Or you could do Asana instead of Virasana. So those of you that are doing Virasana, we're going to start with the Virasana on the right side. So that means your right leg is in Virasana, your left leg is in Dandasana straight out in front of you. So Kathleen, right leg is in alternate position. You choose. So you have to create your setup for that one hero leg. And because there's going to be an imbalance in the hips, you're going to want to probably prop underneath the left buttock side. And before you get too settled, you also want to probably have your strap if you can't reach your left leg directly. So once you set up kind of the general gross shape of the pose, you need to refine it. So make sure your right knee isn't rotated in. Make the adjustments if you see that you're going to roll the calf muscle out. You might roll the under thigh in. Look back at your right toes. Make sure they're evenly anchoring to the floor. You don't have an uprooted small toe. Appropriately prop your left buttock side so you feel your hips are level. Once you prop that side, you lose the contact of the left thigh against the floor, which means you have to work a little harder mentally to bring that awareness of the thigh being absorbed front to back. Okay, so now we're going to take the strap to the arch of the left foot. And we're not talking so much about the placement of that strap because, again, today, we're not coming into our deepest forward bends. We're really trying to master this negative space we can tap into for that practice when we do want to get really nice and deep. So the anchor is your hero leg or whatever leg you've chosen over there. So you really grip into the toenails if you do have the hero leg, extend out through the knee if you're in Shirshasana, or step into the right foot if you're in Asana. Elbows start in underneath the shoulders. Try to create as much evenness across the hips and sitting bones as you can. Take an in-breath, and on an exhale, come forward. Now we're tying it all together. So your awareness is in all those areas that we've just worked with. So beginning with the left thigh, really being absorbed toward the floor. Space in the hip joint. Every time you breathe in, the abdomen, like the underside of an umbrella. It's a light, soft, floating toward the back body, spreading. And then, of course, the action in the shoulders to keep the shoulder blades inserted toward the chest, to keep the chest as the only thing shining forward in the front body. The crown of the head consistent with the line of the spine. Maybe the eyes close, maybe they don't. The elbows a little bit closer together to keep your shoulder girdle broad, chest spread. Okay, on an in-breath, lift yourself out. Good. Now we're going to tie in Crunchanasana, which is the heron pose. I'll show you quickly, we're going to be raising the leg, okay? So now we have a different orientation with what you just did. Instead of the torso leaning forward, the leg is going to angle up. And this means we're against gravity now. So we just did with gravity to help the forward bend. Now we're forward bending against gravity, and your job is to create the space. So before you take the leg up, make sure the knees are close. If you're in hero pose, that you have the evenness across the sitting bones, shoulders are back. You can bend the knee to help you come into the pose. Raise the leg, whatever height you can, preserve the spaciousness of the front body. Identify those major points of the body. You're still compacting your thigh, even though the thigh is raised, just like you did at the wall first pose we did today. You're going to be tempted around your back. So try to keep the shoulders back and the presence of the weight bearing on the sitting bones rather than the tailbone. Take the gaze slightly up. Okay. Eventually we're holding the foot, connecting our face with our leg. So you do close the shape eventually, but only if you can preserve that sense of spaciousness and freedom. The idea is not to suffer here, like the passage said about discipline. And go ahead and lower the leg. And now you're going to find a safe way to extend the right leg out from under you and take a moment in Dandasana just to find kind of the equanimity of the legs. Okay. Okay. I lost the part I wanted to bring us back to, but I'll find it later. You're just sitting up tall. And as you're ready, you're going to find your way to left side. So you're going to be tucking the left leg under you for hero, out to the side for Janu Shirshasana, or stepping the foot down for Marichyasana. And of course, propping the elevated sitting bone side so that you have that evenness across the hips. Take a moment to arrange the legs so they're really perfect. You should see the center of the left thigh is facing the ceiling. The kneecap, four corners of the kneecap pointing forward. All of those left toes are evenly pressing down and they're moving straight back, not out to the side. Okay, so first we're going to do the triangle, the forward bend where we're with gravity. The gravity is helping us deep in the pose. So grab the foot with your strap. You're going to wrap the hands and start with elbows in line with shoulders. Just begin at the beginning, the legs. Okay, some awareness into the right hip joint. Then some awareness into the abdomen. Good, and then keeping the shoulders back, start to lengthen forward. Feel everything of the front body moving front to back except the sternum. And just keep kind of oscillating your attention with those four target areas. Spaciousness. Make sure to do a few inhales, inviting the work of the abdomen, spreading. Not poofing out, not taking up more room, creating space. Anchor into your left leg, keeping some weight on the outer left shin if you're in hero pose. Nice, 2 more breaths. Finishing up an exhalation, use an inhalation to lengthen upright. Good, we're going to come into Crunchanasana, so meaning we're going against gravity now. We're going to be picking that right leg off the floor. Very essential you anchor into your bent knee side. You can start by bending the knee, extend the leg, maybe start a little lower, pull on your strap so that you can get the shoulders back, chest in the sunlight. Stay on the sitting bones. Keep pressing the right thigh gently toward the back thigh. Keep a full extension on the right leg. Keep some space held open in the right hip joint. Inhale, your abdomen is going to be a depressed space, not a big bubble. Nice. Awesome. Help yourself lower the leg. Take the strap off, help yourself transition to Dandasana. Make sure you're even on the sitting bones now. You don't want to be elevated on one side and lower on the other. Good. And now just taking a moment in Pashimotonasana, not your deepest seated forward bend. Just doing one seated forward bend where you can sense those 4 areas, oscillating your attention through those same 4 target areas and keeping the back of the neck long. Good. So we're going to do Shirshasana with Ekapada, meaning we're going to be lowering one leg at a time in headstand. If you're not coming into headstand today, feel free to do downward dog and elevate one leg at a time. If you are doing headstand, we're going to do so in a way that you might want to put a chair where the feet can touch so that you can use it to press into. I don't have my chair there now because I didn't want to block the camera, but to do that work of going against gravity with the thigh that is horizontal to raise the front thigh towards the back thigh. The chair will help you kind of amplify that action. Okay, so set up your Shirshasana or your downward dog. And if you're doing the downward dog version, you can still take the Shirshasana position with the arms and the hands and the head and work with raising one leg at a time. Okay? And I'm going to watch you guys. So take the chair, do your, okay, that's one way to do it, Lynn. Yeah, I see what you're doing. Good, Kathleen. And Shoshana, I see you under that chair. That's great. And John, you're looking so straight. So John, you might keep one foot on the wall and start to invite one leg to that horizontal position. And when you do it, you have to resist gravity, which wants to drop the front thigh toward the floor. You need to absorb it with the back thigh. Wind those toes down, Lynn. Yeah, good, good. And make sure you do it at least once on each side. You can do it in your own timing. Nice, Kathleen. Your legs are looking awesomely extended. You're doing a lot of that pre-work. Looks like your hands might be on the floor in tripod rather than clasping the back of the head. I don't know. I can't tell. Nice, John. You're doing a great job keeping your legs straight. Really nice. Good job. So not only when you take the leg halfway are you thinking about the thigh, you're also trying to keep that hip joint from collapsing. So keeping that idea that someone's taking a belt or a dowel and keeping a little pocket of space open there. So stay down, Kathleen, now that you're down. Just give yourself a break in child's pose. And the rest of you that are still up in Shirshasana, you're going to start to think about coming down soon. And when you do come down, try to come down in a way that is controlled, slowing that momentum. taking as long as you need. Okay, and when you're ready to come up, we're going to start to set up for shoulder stand, but we're going to be working with Halasana today, which is plow pose using the chair. So you're going to be setting up your blanket stack with the neat edges nearest the chair seat right above that. And I'm going to demonstrate. I use a strap, so I'm going to make my loop that fits me so that my elbows are contained, so that my shoulders can stay broad. Otherwise, my elbows like to go wide, my shoulders narrow, and then the pose is less stable. I'm a strap girl. Okay, so that strap, if you're using one, when you thread the arms through, your arms should be parallel. It should be fitted right above the elbows and the upper arms. But you don't start with both arms in, because then you get really stuck trying to get up. So I always leave it on my less dominant arm so that my dominant hand can find the other end and thread itself in when the time comes. So I'm going to prepare by coming kind of through the work of shoulder stand so that I can find my way into plow pose. So I'm going to start by just kind of giving myself the support I need to get my legs up and onto the chair seat. My shoulders should be right on the edge of the blanket once I'm up and I'm threading my other arm in. And I'm going to grab my back and I'm going to help my shoulder blades come toward my chest, walking the elbows in and trying to get the outer upper arms down. The chair seat is super helpful to keep your legs extended and your thighs moving toward the ceiling rather than falling toward the floor. I'm attempting to move my hips in line with my shoulders. I'm attempting to keep space at the hip joints rather than getting congested there. So this is plow pose. Shoshana, I know this is not your favorite. And if you want to do legs up the wall pose, you could do that as another inversion. And if you're doing legs up the wall pose, you might play with taking one leg horizontally at a time if you want to. So you can begin to kind of set this up for yourself. Once you're here, we will be working with taking one leg up and back down. And then the other leg up. Not this fast, of course, I'm doing a fast forward preview of this work, and then you'll come back to plow pose. And then you're going to take yourself up to Sarvangasana, keeping the hips really floating in line with the shoulders, keeping the feet on top of the hips. Okay, and I'm going to bring myself out so I can look at you guys. Nice. So Lynn, if you can get the toes on the seat of the chair, push the chair. I know it's a little bit close to the wall, but yeah, push the chair away so that you can get the toes. Yeah, you're slipping. So that mat pad, if you have one, is a good one here. But yeah, it looks like you got the grip you need, maybe. So keep turning the toes toward you, pressing the heels towards the wall. It looks better. Great. Walk the hands toward the shoulder blade region. Yeah, great, Kathleen. So eventually you want to get the hands more on the lower back and then crawling the hands eventually toward the upper back. Beautiful. Really lovely. So you can use that vertical leg to lift your pose, because again, we're working against gravity. So lift yourself up, bring that space. Nice, John. I love that you're keeping your legs straight, except I have a little chair issue, but once you've taken both legs up and down, you're going to take your legs up for Sarvangasana. We're going to hold for 2 minutes. I'm going to start the timer just so I keep track. Lifting your legs up, Kathleen. Good. So eventually we lose sight of the feet. Another minute. And of course, if you need to leave the pose, that's what you need to do. Just a half a minute to go. We're starting to pull away from the outer world, starting to withdraw the sense organs, many of which are on the face and the head. Another example of the discipline, the work we do, oftentimes an editing process more than an adding process. Removing the unnecessary from our lives. Beautiful. So that was a 2-minute Sarvangasana. You're going to start to find your way out. We all have different versions of that. Some come back to plow. Some start to lower the feet toward the floor in the other direction. If you're in plow, you can remove your strap, extend your arms towards your chair, and then support that kind of momentum that might take over. Try to control the momentum as you lower yourself down. When you do come down, you're going to slide toward the head side of the blanket stack so that you can just rest the sacrum, but you can have your shoulders and head down on the floor. And you can either come into bound angle position with your legs, or you could cross your ankles. Okay, so roll to your side. We're going to take Salamba Halasana. And Shoshana, I have an alternate for you. But Salamba, instead of the toes on the chair, it's going to be your thighs. Your thighs. So you want to put something soft. Hopefully you have an additional blanket. If you don't have an additional blanket, actually, you could put 2 blocks side by side on your chair. You definitely want to have your appropriate blankets for shoulder stand. So don't rob your shoulder stand just to get some padding on the chair. Just take 2 blocks. You're essentially trying to elevate the seat of the chair to meet your thighs so that we can keep the integrity of the shape. So what I thought you could do, Shoshana, she has a cervical spine injury from the past. So Sarvangasana is very difficult for her. She can, you can You can do a reclining, I'm talking to Shoshana right now, you can do a reclining Pashimotonasana, which is a really nice forward bend with your hips elevated. So the hips are elevated and your legs come kind of out, and you can send the arms up. But we want the hips elevated so that we have the support for our legs to kind of fall toward the body in a passive way rather than having to work for it. So you're going to do, if you take to this, you can do this one, Shoshana. And then, so I will show you before you guys come in just kind of how this goes, just so you have an idea of how to get into it. Then I'm going to watch you guys. So it's the same way that we come into shoulder stand. We want to have the shoulders almost to the edge of the blanket stack. If you work with a blanket or if you work with a strap, you want it looped on that non-dominant arm. You have to use momentum to help you get the legs up and over just to the chair as you get your strap on and walk the hands into place. But then you're going to be kind of pulling the chair toward you. I need to come out of my strap to get it where I need it. We want the chair to support the thighs. Okay, you're almost right to the hip creases with your chair. And then you can either use your strap and work with your hands to your back. Some people prefer the arms to come up toward the feet. I absolutely love this pose. So I'm going to help myself out so I can watch you guys. And by the way, I used to hate this pose. So what I can tell you about that is if you're not liking it, your props are wrong, probably. You need more support. So Shoshana, I can't see your arms, but feel free to reach them, you know, kind of above the head, like Virasana. Good, Lynn. Support the thighs. And sometimes you need to elevate the height. Oh, oh no. Sometimes you need to elevate or play with the height of the props on the chair seat. We all have different proportions, obviously. Another good prop for the thighs on the chair seat could be your bolster if you need a lot more height. Yeah, and I always put a block under my lower back too if you have, if you want support to get the hips up. Good, that's good, Lynn. And after a while, if that Pashimotonasana gets old, Shoshana, you could do a reclining child's pose, grabbing the thighs or shins. Kathleen and John, I can see most of you, it's looking good. So the chair, eventually we can get all the way up to those hip creases. So next time, Lynn, I think we should give you a little more height on the chair seat. You have a longer torso, so we have more kind of, yeah, you could do that too. So handy. Okay, so this is really by design a quieting pose. So if you're not feeling that, either modify or come out, but this is really our last pose before Shavasana. And so of course we want to be heading in the right direction. We don't want to be agitating the brain or the body. We don't want our senses on high alert. So maybe you can imagine, Lynn, if the thighs were elevated and the feet were more in line with the hips, you would probably feel a little quieter here. So next time, let's try a bolster, maybe the long way. Nice. Nice. Yeah, and even a block in front of that next time if you feel a little less supported, right above the kneecaps. So I'm not going to ask Lynn any questions right now because I don't want her to shake her head sideways if the answer is no. But what I'm wondering with that is if you created a little more sense of space in that pose by elevating the thighs. Good. Now, some people like to come out by grabbing the chair legs for support. But I really want you to come out kind of gracefully. So just kind of honor where you've brought the mind, the senses, and try to maintain and keep that. And then help yourself out. And once again, you'll just slide to lower the head and shoulders onto an even floor level and keep your hips elevated. And we're going to stay in this, this time we're going to stay in a supported bridge. So I want your hips elevated, your arms unfolded, your feet, heels under the knees. So bridge legs, yeah. So take the feet a little wider. Feet, soles of the feet are on the ground, the knees fall together, giving us just a little tiny neutralizing back bend after a series of forward bends. Here's some mantras for daily living that have to do with discipline. I give myself fully to each moment. Discipline is quality, not quantity. I can always make a choice. There is enough time. My yoga practice is discipline in action. I'm going to start to invite you to self-guide yourself into your Shavasana. Try to do so in a way that is gentle, quieting, not jarring in any way. Giving yourself any support that you need to keep the sense organs more passive, more withdrawn. Feel free to stay in that little supported bridge pose if it's soothing and quieting. So this Shavasana is what Iyengar considered the very most difficult pose. It's a pose of zero physical effort. It's really a pose about the discipline of cultivating sustained attention. And we can use the tools of awareness and acceptance. Noticing and allowing. So once you've placed yourself in a pose of physical surrender, of utmost support, notice anything. Let the noticing become like a river. Allowing that river to flow. Maybe using your own breath, your own inner body awareness to keep you staring at that live river rather than running with some thought. So the corpse pose is named as such because we sometimes can get as far as experiencing that we are not this body, we are not this mind. We are way more vast. Meanwhile, we can witness the body and witness the mind from a distance. Noticing and allowing. Maybe see yourself as some big, heavy boulder planted in that river. All those things washing over you, standing still and grounded. So the beauty is we get to keep this heightened awareness for hours after our practice. We start to reanimate now. So take a few deeper breaths. Invite some small, simple movements. Let those movements increase until you're able to fold your hands onto your belly, bend your knees, and ease yourself to one side of your body. Only using the effort that is necessary to come to seated. And just like we began, finding that good space pose. Sukhasana. Joining your hands together in front of your heart. Just take a moment to give thanks to yourself for devoting time to this practice. Let's take a deep breath in together through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. All right. Thank you all for joining this morning. Happy Wednesday. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day out. I hope to see some of you Friday for more forward bending. Take care.